All right, we're live. I'm gonna at least ping Showy Call, just because we're doing the one review today.
Yeah.
We'll go from there. Okay, welcome back, Suki.
Hello.
I'm gonna close my email. I don't need that right now. Okay, we're gonna get started. So Showy Cult sent another VOD, another Jin VOD. So we're gonna take a look at that. Let me actually, before we do get completely started here, I am gonna pull up notes.
Yes,
Just
what
to
we got
refresh.
before.
Yeah, just to refresh what we did last time. So,
I think I saw a
general,
lot of progress
yeah,
from what I looked at.
generals turn off chat, have better focus on what is in your control. We'll just kind of keep those in mind. Micro suggestions were use what you can. So we're going to be using E, popping pots, entering fights or as extended fights occur, and optimizing auto Q fourth shot. And then macro, buy a control ward when you have the gold to do so, and do not have a control ward already. So we're just going to be keeping those things in mind. I want to make sure that we keep a refresher of that stuff kind of as we're going. And for example, in this case, if you didn't turn off chat, we weren't going to review this. So we'll see if you did once we boot this up here.
Yeah. So first thing I wanted to mention off bat was immediately see that we're no longer taking Dark Harvest, which is really good.
Yep.
And I think we changed. I think you went Doran's Blade last time.
Yes, and
into
you had
Pokelane.
suggested sword and 3 pots, so good.
Right. So this is progress because it shows that you're changing, but not progress because in this lane it's actually better to go Doran's one pot.
Okay, can you give a rundown of what the difference
Yeah.
is, why you're going to be wanting to start with particular items?
Yeah. So versus poke lanes that outrange you, I think. So for instance, if just give a few champion examples, Caitlyn, Varus, Ezreal, uh, a lot of supports will be able to poke you just on their own. Lux support, Xerath support, pretty much think of like mage caster spot. Those we consider those poke lanes. Those lanes you need extra sustain into, or you will just get poked down and not be able to play. In other instances, like this lane, or so in poke lanes, you take longsword 3 pots because you need the pots. I'd also recommend taking second wind into poke lanes in your secondary tree under the resolve header, rather than anything under any other. Like a second wind gives you more sustain in lane than going biscuits and inspiration does. Versus this lane specifically, this lane really only cares to long form trade you. They're not really going to be able to poke trade you. Ash and Jin is a better poke lane than Twitch and Renata. Twitch and Renata are looking more so to pop up on you in stealth and try and one-shot you or do huge chunk damage to you. So it's better to go Doran's one pot for healing up, using the one pot to heal up from that big chunk trade, and then having the 80 extra HP to defer the one-shot trades with Twitch's stealth. So when we're looking at what items we're buying level 1, we want to be thinking about what is the enemy lane going to do to me, and what can I buy to best serve my purpose in interacting with the lane. So if you need more pots sustain from poke, you go longsword 3 pots. If you need to sustain from poke and they have a champion that you really need to dodge the skill shots of, on Jin specifically, and only Jin, it's okay to go boots and 4 pots. And then in lanes where they really just want to all in you and do a lot of damage all up front, threaten to kill you, you go Doran's Blade for the 80 HP.
Perfect. Easy. Okay, so keep that in mind, Chivako.
But it is a really good sign that, you know, a lot of players, and this is a totally understandable thing, right? We're all humans. They're a little stubborn when they're told, like, hey, that's the wrong thing to build. They're like, no, it feels better to me. I like it. I just like it, you know? So it's a huge sign that you're willing to immediately say, okay, maybe it is wrong. I'll try something else.
Yes, and just a note, I know that Shoiko reached out within this VOD submission and basically said, I don't know what I could have done to win this game. So
Yeah.
just something to keep in mind. We'll probably get into it a little bit later, and it's something that I stand pretty strongly by. Sometimes you just can't win the game. And I obviously I haven't seen this whole VOD. I do not know what happens, but just keep in mind, like, there might be a scenario where you didn't have much you could do, right?
Yep.
As long as you're sticking to kind of recommendations from us and just general mechanics, keep and improving those over time, you will win the games, right?
Exactly. The way I like to put it, you know, if it's okay for me to mention poker
Sure.
on the stream. I don't play poker myself, but poker and a lot of gambling games are typically a way of playing odds. You're trying to increase the percentage chance that you can win. No poker player, no gambler, doesn't matter how great you are at anything, at bluffing, at knowing when to fold, you will not win even close to like 90% of the time. It's just not going to happen. So in League, there are going to be a lot of games where it's just, you couldn't have done anything better. And that is not to say that you did everything right. It's just to say that, like, you did what you could in the moment. My best friend used to be a swimmer in high school, and she gave me really, really great advice for everything in life, which is a lot of times when you're swimming, you are like pushing yourself to the ultimate limit. You are using, like, you're getting every single breath you can and pushing it for all it's worth, to the point that you have to come up for that next breath when you're swimming, just to get that extra speed. And then you reach the end of the pool and you come up and you see you didn't win, and your immediate feeling is to say, I could have done more. Like, I could have held that breath for longer. And the reality is that you couldn't. That doesn't mean that you won't be able to in the future, or that you couldn't have done better. It's just in that moment you pushed yourself to the limit, and that's what matters. So in League, you're going to have those games where you lost. And that's why it's important not to focus on solo queue win and loss, and more important to focus on, did I give it all that I had? Did I learn new limits? Did I push myself so that I can continue to grow? So that's the point I wanted to make there. But the secondary point I wanted to make was also, it's important to know that when you're analyzing your own VODs and when you're trying to learn League of Legends, sometimes it can be really, really frustrating, because it is a game of inches, to quote a famous movie. If I were to go through this VOD and point out everything that you could have done better to potentially lead you to an outcome where you would have been in a slightly different situation that could have technically gotten you a win here, it would feel very frustrating. So you'd be like, okay, but in the moment, how am I, like, I'm not allowed to make a little mistake? Like, what? And that, I've dealt with that personally. Everyone who analyzes their VODs deals with that personally. So if we are to say at the end of the spot, there's nothing you could have done better, that doesn't mean you have nothing to learn from this game or you played perfectly. It just means trying to nail down all the little things that technically could have butterfly affected is just going to be frustrating and not helpful.
Yep, like we said, we're gonna try to focus down to about 3 total recommendations, and if you are fixing those consistently over the course of time, you will be significantly better. Whether or not they help you win a particular game is a different question.
Exactly. This lane, actually, you could probably skip ahead. This lane goes pretty well overall.
Yeah.
The push is fine. You don't super hard push, but you definitely get a full, like, 2-3 wave crash on their tower. The lane goes pretty well. You're CSing well. I think you have about 36 at 4, which is, or not 36 at 4, like 36 at 5, which is pretty good. Pretty close to where you want that to be. So
I'm gonna have it run just because I am noticing a pattern already that I want to check in on in like 2 minutes. So I just want to see this lane phase a
Yeah, go
little
for it.
bit further because I have some questions about it too. I mean, just even within the first 2 waves, like massive improvement, right?
I
You're
know,
getting
like that's what I was talking about. Like it's definitely like that's why I was saying like the CSing is a lot better. The pattern of abilities on wave is a lot better. Definitely improved.
Yep. And I know that one of the questions that I have, because obviously ADCs need to utilize it, like Israel, for example.
Hmm.
Everybody needs to utilize abilities on wave to get CS, right? I was a mid laner, so like I am way more used to doing that. Just our mana pools are generally bigger, right? When playing
Yeah.
Ari, for example, like sometimes you just need to queue the wave. How frequently do you want to lean back on that? As Jin, I assume more because he only has the 4 and a reload.
Well, so if you pause this real quick, because I don't want to get too far ahead of where we're going.
Sure.
So yes and no. It gets like everything in League. It's beginner, intermediate, advanced. Things get really complex really fast. Even something that seems as simple as using abilities on wave.
Yep.
For Jin, using abilities to CS, if you think you're going to miss it, totally fine. But most often, what you'll find actually is, even in this FOD, maybe without thinking about it, the reason why he's using abilities on wave isn't actually to CS. It's because he has this little tingle in the back of his head that says that Twitch is hitting the wave more than him.
Yep.
And he needs to hit it more to facilitate his own push. So in this, you saw him use the Q on those back 2 caster begins. He could have just waited for his reload and hit those when they were last at health, right? But he didn't want to because he felt like, okay, I need to kill you, so my wave keeps moving forward, so I can keep playing here.
Sure.
That's most often what abilities are used for. Typically, it's okay. Like the threshold you're going for is, I want to use my abilities to facilitate as much as I want them to facilitate while maintaining a high enough mana pool to answer a situation. So for Jin, being at around 170, 210 mana is fine. But that's about where you want to sit because that's going to be about your full combo. Your Q is about 40 mana, your W is about 70 mana rank 1. So that's about 110. If you want to place trap, it's 30, right? So
Yep.
in a fight that's going to go to 2 grenades worth, which is about a 6-second cooldown, or no, 8-second cooldown, it's you need at least like 170 to get like that full rotation off. So sitting at this mana is fine. If he were to continue using Qs and Ws on this wave to push this wave in, he'll find himself at really low mana really fast, and that's where it becomes a problem.
Yep. Okay. It's good to know. Just keep an eye on that kind of as you're going forward, especially against an all-in lane like this, right? Shouldn't you be more worried that if you don't have enough mana to really respond, they're just kind of run you over?
Yeah, it's having low mana versus an all-in lane is definitely very scary.
Yep.
Using mana, so like that's one of the things, right? Is versus an all-in lane, how do I dissuade them from all-inning me? They can't. They will feel dissuaded from all-inning me if they have lower HP. So I will use my mana to get them low. Like I said, Jin is a very good Ashe lane. Jin Ashe is a very good poke lane.
Yep.
I'll use my mana to get them low, so that even when my mana starts getting low, they've already been, they're not incentivized to trade me anymore.
Sure.
But here, you've used a lot of your abilities on the wave. You have gotten good poke, so it's okay. But it is a little scary if you were like QW the wave here, and then Twitch could just stealth behind you, right? But yeah.
Cool.
Oh, actually, if you could pause. Really recommend, I would absolutely put this in the notes. Go into your settings and turn mana costs on HUD on. So there's a setting, especially with how big your HUD is, in the settings that will show you how much your abilities cost in mana on the icon. And that way you can actually know what you're using and do the math in your head how much you have.
Done. Mission accomplished.
Could you full screen the VOD?
Yes, sorry. That is a good idea.
So here, another thing I want to mention, you end up doing it here, but it feels so you did it the wrong way. If you go back 5 seconds, that's actually, I feel, really important. So a trend I've noticed in your VOD is you don't use your Q to punish people when they get close. Your Q, as it kills things, increases its damage. So the perfect thing you can do on Jhin, if they give it to you, if an enemy champion walks next to 3 caster minions that are low, and you can just boink, 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 and then hit the champion, it does huge damage. And you'll see Twitch do this right here. But Jin's grenade AI is very, very simple. It doesn't take into consideration champion priority. It doesn't take into consideration health. The only thing Jin's Q does is hit the closest target. So you throw your Q at the closest caster minion to you, and because of that, it boink, boink, boinks away from the Twitch. And you'll see here, if you play the VOD, if you Q the other one as Twitch walks up, it would have boinked him on the head right here as he walked away, and that W actually would have stunned. And that would have been amazing for you. So take into consideration, like, what is my grenade going to do when I throw it? How can I use this to facilitate my combo? Because the amount of times an enemy champion has walked into my grenade as it boink boinks on something, and I just W4 shot them and kill them is, it feels amazing when it happens. So that goes back to what we were talking about last time. Like, use what you have. So like that's already better CSing. Like even though you missed that one and that feels bad, like that's better CSing than before because you were at least trying to set up on it, the grenade.
Yep. Question for you, Tsuki. So we had talked about prioritizing E a little bit more in our notes. I noticed we took QWQ and then E level 4. Is that standard for Jhin, or do you want to just get QWE?
It is actually standard for Jhin.
Okay.
His Q gets a lot of benefits from leveling it up, and because it's Riot sees it as like his primary ability.
Sure.
I personally do it based on feeling, because he had such a good push and because he had such a good minion wave and was like got them low enough to a point where he wasn't super scared of any kind of like all-in trade. I think it's fine to go Q just to keep pushing that prio and then go E4th. So I think that's actually fine here. I just wouldn't fall into the habit of it because it is dependent on like
matchup, where you are, where the wave
exactly.
is. Yeah, sure,
because you will see in about 2 minutes from now, he has 2 traps up and Twitch walks away from the wave, which is huge indicator, by the way, ever playing against Twitch.
Yep.
If Twitch ever randomly walks away from the wave, he is stealthing on you every single time. Because Twitch stealth, probably know this, but just in case you don't, Twitch stealth is not just I go invis and I pop back up. Twitch stealth is I go invis and I pop back up with a huge attack speed boost. So when he's going stealth, it's because he wants to trade you. A lot of people think, he's all-inning me. He doesn't have to all-in you with stealth. He can just pop up, and he's going to get 4 autos off in the time it takes you to get 2 because he's Twitch. And he gets like a 30, I think it's like 30 scaling to 50 or something attack speed boost percent. It's huge. So just be aware of that because, like I said, in about 2 minutes, you're going to have 2 traps up. You're going to be around the same position in the lane, and you could have put a trap right where that little clash banner is a perfect place to put a trap, like a little bit in front of it. And below you in the bush. Because when Twitch is stealthing to you, very, very frequently, people feel the need to walk through open spaces to stealth at you because they don't want to get caught on minions. I could go into the psychology of it because I'm interested in that stuff, but I'm going to stay simple for now. But they like to walk through open spaces. The same way you really like to hug that little tunnel in the tower. It feels safe. So if you place traps there and below you, Twitch would have had to have stepped on one when he tried to stealth on you, and you would have gotten a free W trade on him, and it would have been really, really good for you. But instead, you very, very nearly die, I think, when it happens.
Yep.
So yeah, we can keep going now.
Yep.
I will mention, don't have to pause for this. Be aware there are a lot of windows I'm not mentioning where the enemy team is walking into very bad positions and you could freely poke them. They are giving you a lot of those opportunities. where
I'm gonna actually, before we, I'm gonna close this real quick. I am going to bring up one of your VODs, actually, because you bring this up, and it's kind of a small thing, but it's something that I think Joey Colt could benefit from. You are literally constantly as far forward as possible and punishing people as much as possible. So I just wanted to show kind of what that looks like at the higher level. This is white. Is this whole VOD white?
it's white. Yeah, I'm on B. I think I'm on the B stream.
My bad.
Oh, good. So B stream. So you have to go to the yeah.
Sports B.
Okay. I also, if you want to reach out to me about,
we don't have these available.
You don't reward the VODs. That's okay. If you'd like to reach out to me about me sending you one of my own VODs, or even making you a quick little 5-minute, 8-minute video where I go over that with one of my own VODs, I will do that for you. I recently did it for my top laner Chroma on Blue. So I will absolutely do that for you. Just reach out to me and let me know that you want it.
That's something that we can probably make available too, just like in the Discord and skill dev.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, let's keep hitting back. So, no, it's right here. Duh. Okay, sorry. In the future, we will do that. And I'm also going to ping content to tell them that we're not recording B.
Yeah, as I was saying, just important to know that, like, it's something that I'm not going to harp on because it's not something that you learn well situationally. A lot of League of Legends is some things you can correct in the moment. You know, like a wrestling coach can correct your stance in the moment, but he can't correct the way you use your weight. That has to be something that you build over time. So I'm not going to harp on like, oh, you could have queued him there, you could have W'd them, oh, you could have, you know, blah 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 blah. I find it much more important to just mention there are windows. So be aware that there are a lot of windows here you could be playing more aggressive on. But it's hard to balance too. If you play more aggressive.
And like frankly, that wasn't the suggestion that we made. Like our goal was, hey, focus and get CS in your lane, and like you're doing that, which is great.
Yeah, this is 46 CS at 6 minutes is fine. That's like, you know, that's around 7 a minute, which is for anyone below diamond or even in low diamond, I would recommend, you know, as long as you have about 7 CS a minute by the end of the game, you're fine. So here, I like this because it shows that you're trying to set up minions. It is a little wrong in its execution, but really, really good to at least be trying. And I really like that trap. That was huge improvement from last time. The fact that you put a trap under her feet, I know she dies to a random bowling ball in a second, but the fact that you put that trap under her feet actually saved your support's life there. Huge improvement that you can just see off the bat. Placing traps in combat like that really helped you out. That was another moment where you could have queued the casters and got that little boink 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 damage thing on Twitch, but yeah. Yeah, placing the trap under the feet, really important. Here, you go for a W in the wave, which is safe. It's okay. I don't mind it at all. But you could also just place a trap in the bush. Twitch and Renata don't have a lot of ways to, like, get on you unless he's stealthing on you. And you're not walking far enough up there when you're putting a trap for him to, like, get behind you. And here, when you know the enemy champions have recalled, just place a trap to push. You did it last week in your VOD. It's okay in moments like this to place traps to push. Because you know you're not being contested, you know they're not going to, like, kill you. You don't need it for combat. It's okay just to use it. Like I said, like, use the resources at your disposal. Something really, really important to mention here. Be aware of enemy champion back timings. Every time the support leaves your lane, think, is the support going to walk back to this lane, or are they going to walk mid lane? You know, when you're pinging MIA, consider that. Because there, like here, was actually a back timing for you. When you full crashed that wave, you should have recalled, bought Swifties, and come back to lane. Because now you have 800 unused gold when they have just used all of their gold. So it feels bad. Here, Twitch walked away from the wave and went stealth. You know he's here. He's above you. And that was actually what I was talking about right there. If you go back 10 seconds, 15 seconds.
Yep.
Here. So if you press spacebar here, Twitch just walked away from the wave. You have a trap up, and you would have had two if you didn't use one in the tribe rush because you missed your ward. Where's Twitch going to stealth from here? If I freeze frame this and say Twitch just walked away from the wave, where is he going to stealth to? He's either going to stealth right underneath that little clash banner, or he's going to pop up right next to Ash in that bush, right? So if you had two traps there, what's he going to do? He's going to walk up to the minion wave, and then you just walk away from him. Yeah. So this is where it's important to be using traps, especially versus a Twitch. Because if he pops up here, he's on a trap right now. Really good to pop your pot, though. Popping your pot is really good here. You don't need to pop two. They don't give you anything extra for popping two at the same time, but just the fact that you pressed it immediately is a huge improvement.
Now, the only bit of other, obviously, we could prevent this entirely, like you said, with placement of traps, right? That would help pretty significantly.
Yeah. So just thinking about placing our traps in places that will prevent the enemy team from killing us. And that's what I meant when I said last week, placing your traps with purpose. When you're placing them with purpose, what are you doing with them? So that could be, I'm placing them underneath Lilia and Renata so that they don't kill my Ashe, which you did earlier. That was good. Could also be, I'm placing them to prevent being ganked from this avenue. Could also be, I'm placing them to push the wave. Or it could be, I'm placing them to prevent Twitch from having stealth roots. So this whole situation could have been prevented by placing those two traps, because Twitch can't push through the trap. It slows him like quite a bit, gives you time to walk away or even just instantly flash away. But most often, if he pops up in a trap, he'll just backstep away from it because he doesn't want to get instantly turned on. So yeah, this whole situation would have been prevented by the trap. But even if you don't have the trap, which you didn't hear, my only two recommendations would be flash instantly. Don't hold your summoner spells. It's really, really tempting as an ADC to hold your summoner spells. You did it earlier when Ashe was dying to the gank, where it was like, oh, I want to hold my heal for as long as possible. Don't. It's really good to heal as fast as possible, usually. Not when they're full HP, but, when it'll do something. Because Ignite applies grievous wounds, which reduces healing. Most often, support champions will instantly ignite whoever they're fighting. So if you had healed before Ashe had been ignited, she actually would have lived there because the heal would have healed her for more. And here, if you had flashed instantly, Twitch wouldn't have been able to get his 3 Hail of Blades procs off on you before you were out of range. So you would have taken less burst damage and been able to run away. And then my other recommendation would be to pop a pot instantly, which you did. So...
Yep. Yeah, I really just wanted to think about, like, even at this point, even when he does hit that, I probably personally would have been flashing out of here.
Yeah.
Part of me, my brain for a second was like, well, maybe we have an opportunity to re-engage. Like, if you actually dodge this, but you guys are still pretty far behind here. Yeah, I think you're just...
Yeah, Ashe is really low level.
Yeah.
There is a moment because of the way this goes, where you had a moment you could have played on. Right about here, when you get behind the tower and dodge the run ult, you can just instantly pop ulti.
Right now, yeah.
Yeah, but you wait and you think about it, and then they're out of range. But overall, this lane isn't bad. They just used their ultimates. They didn't get a kill off of it. They did burn your flash. But your up CS got 66 at 9 minutes, which isn't amazing, but it's pretty close to on mark for the 7 at 10, which is
much better than it was. Also.
Yes. So here, I like that you're looking for the W. You use it a little too early, so it's learning your damage ranges, how much damage your W does. It does about 90 to 100. So be aware of that. Nice. Yep. I will say, I personally wouldn't have gone shield bow here, but I think it's okay.
So I think that so you recommended he rush shield bow last time. Is that because he was in a poke lane specifically?
I said shield bow because he needs the lifesteal.
Yep.
He needed the lifesteal in that lane, and because. So the thing about Kate Lux and the reason why it's such a strong lane is that it's a poke lane, but it's not. The reason Kate Lux is super strong is that it's a really strong poke lane with the ever-looming secret weapon of being an all-in lane.
Yep.
If Lux hits a Q on you, you die. Because Kate will trap underneath you, headshot, EQ, headshot, you die. And that's before level 6. If they're level 6, you're dead 100% over with the Luxar. So shield bow is good just because you like they're gonna one-shot you, and it gives you the Vam Scepter, so it's fine. Here, their whole team is pretty squishy. Their whole team also is really countered by mobility. If you can dodge Renata R, if you can get out of Twitch range, if you can get away from Garen. So Gale Force is really good here in my opinion. But shield bow is okay because they also have burst with Twitch E, Garen R. So it's fine. It's okay to go shield bow here. But I personally would have gone Gale Force.
Got it. Maybe that's a good candidate for another required reading. If we can find a particularly good itemization guide that we can throw in there, that'll help, I think, give some context a little bit.
Yep. Here you can just push the wave as hard as you want.
Yep.
Using trap, it's good.
This is another back timing, though, right? I mean,
you can get a play
kind
here.
of greedy for a play, but yeah, that's fine.
Well, it's not greedy for a play because you just saw Twitch back.
True.
If Twitch had backed with Renata's death, then it is a back timing because you want to leave.
Yep.
Like you want to get there and then get out before they both get back. But because you just saw Twitch recall, you know it's only Renata, so you can stay. This is greedy. You should be recalling here. You should get boots. Yeah, this is why it's greedy, because Twitch gets back in time to do this. He ends up dying, but...
Good heal.
Yeah. Yeah. And nice that you're backing, even though you killed him. A lot of people would greed for that wave because they killed the AD, but it's good to back here.
I was just thinking I would have greeted for that wave, personally.
Looking for a control word, that's good. Control words, especially, very, very good against Twitch because they reveal his stealth.
Yep.
So a lot of times people will feel tempted to buy a control word and place it in the river somewhere, and place it somewhere for proactive vision. Versus a Twitch, it's okay to use them in lane so he can never Q sneak up on you. And a lot of the times they will then try to greed to get rid of that ward because they want to be able to stealth on you, and you can just trade them while they're trying to get the ward. Good map awareness, looking out for your team. Make sure that you're considering what your team is doing when you're fighting. If you had used your first 2 shots on the champion you knew your other 2 allies were already hitting, you actually probably kill her there. Good trap placement.
The biggest wave. It's beautiful. Almost beautiful.
Better. Nice. Good word trick. But like I said, that's a habit of like, oh, I should place my control word somewhere where it's going to stay, but you don't have to in this lane. It's okay to just put a normal word there. That's just learning damage ratios, not quite knowing how much damage your grenade's going to do. It is good to back here.
You have the cannon.
You used a lot of
and it's
money.
Pushed.
Yeah, and Twitch stealths on you here. You're dead. Yeah.
Yeah. So to clarify, there were kind of 3 things there, right, that we noticed about that back timing that you did not when you stayed. Number 1, it's a cannon minion, right? or it's a cannon wave, meaning that it's probably going to stick around a little bit longer, or at least it will without getting pushed too hard. Second, it was forward, so like it's a little bit harder to show, but like here, you see it was about to actually crash up there, so you would have needed to be very overextended anyway to actually take this wave. And then third, money, right?
Third what?
Money, because we don't have a ton, but we have enough to grab an item, maybe another control ward. And
Oh, I
reset
mean,
this lane.
it's a back timing even if you don't have money.
Yeah.
It's just about realizing that like you used a lot of your mana pushing the wave, so you don't have a lot of mana to prevent an all-in. You lost half of your HP in a fight before. You don't have summoner spells up. You don't have shield bow up because it just got popped. And you saw Twitch in the lane, so him walking away from the lane, you know he's stealth tier. You just like there's no way to walk up to this wave. You just have to recall, even if it feels really bad. It's one of those situations. But here it actually, it didn't feel that bad because you did have enough gold to buy a longsword.
He did ask specifically, is RFC a good second item here? I think that itemization is going to be a good thing for us to get into now with these questions popping up. Not necessarily now in this VOD, but now in like required reading, primarily because it sounds like Shoei Kulta's taking all of our advice extremely well, which is good, right? Like focusing on the wave, focusing on CSing more, getting rid of chat, utilizing E a little bit better, which is good. And now he's like, okay, but there's this other stuff. So itemization sounds like one that is coming up because he's heard what you're saying, and now he is trying to apply that to every single game.
Yeah. So if this were a couple patches ago, RFC is fine here. It's not fine here because the recent patch changed the required critical chance to gain damage on Infinity Edge to 40%, so you can buy its second item now. It's much stronger, especially on Jin, who has to do more damage on each singular shot. So on Jin, you're pretty much always, except for very rare situations where they have a lot of tanks and you need to go LDR, no matter what mythic you go first, you're pretty much always going to go Infinity Edge, second item.
Cool.
And then third item, if they're squishy, RFC. If they're tanky, LDR.
Yeah, so I think it's important to note here. Obviously, you didn't like just lose lane because of this, but when you ask like, I don't know what I could have done differently in this VOD, like just looking at how drastically ahead they are compared to what they were before because of you trying to take that wave, right? They just got 3 full plates, and they were already a little bit ahead, I think, on levels. So it's a big swing just from those 2 kills and the plates that they're able to get out of here.
And that's what we mean by butterfly effects. Because like we don't know what could have happened if you didn't do that. There is a chance that like if you get that proper recall timing, that you come back, crash wave on their tower, Ek comes bot and you dive them, and then you get a tower, 2 kills, and you guys just go mid lane and start running the game. It could also be that you come back, push up, your jungler doesn't come, their jungler comes, you die, lose your tower, and then you lose the game. It's hard to know, but more often than not, it's better to get that back off. It's another situation where you're using a control ward where it doesn't do anything to Twitch. You could have just regular warded that and then control warded your own bush. The trap placement isn't optimal. Try and think more about with your wards too. I noticed like the reason you misplaced that ward and try earlier is because you were trying to place it as close to you as possible. It's actually bad. You want to place it directly in the center of the bush, in that specific bush. This does change based on bush, so try and just like think about it while you're doing it. You want to place it where it gets the most vision that's useful to you possible. So in the center of Tribush is good because it gets you the most vision extending out to all 3 of those routes they can come through. Placing it too close to you gets less vision in their jungle, which actually means you have less time to react if the jungle comes from there.
And just to note, this is good back timing, right? Like you had money, but you weren't low for any reason. But it was the same thing. It was a caster wave, and it's pushed up near them. So just if nothing else, like you're going to get back to the wave when that hits your wave, and you're going to be able to farm it.
Control word blue trinket.
Yeah. Yep.
And here versus Twitch, you're now in a really long lane. You want to let this wave come in as far as possible to give Twitch less area to stealth behind you.
So even if that means just literally standing here and letting the minions hang out on you, your wave will eventually push out after that, but you'll at least keep the wave here kind of at parity, and it'll take a while for that to happen. Then you can slow push it.
Advanced tactic here would be to let that wave freeze.
Yeah. We'll get there, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Mouse accuracy is another thing that's hard. I'm noticing in these games, I don't know how long you've been playing League for. It is one of those things that like, oh, it can come with practice, but it can also just be something you really have to work on depending on who you are. Your mouse accuracy is pretty poor. Your clicks are pretty slow. For instance, you'll watch like when you try and W the Renata on the Amumu queue, you have to like open up the indicator and then like drag it to the Renata. You do want to be at a point where you can just like point it at the Renata and click and not even think about it. All like if you think about it, all you have to do is put your mouse on Renata and press W, right? So if you feel like that's something that you're not getting better at, try utilizing some tools that FPS players use. You know, utilize Aim Trainer, or go into custom games and practice like really just like getting those W's smoothly like over the champion.
Another point here too is positioning in this team fight.
Yeah.
I think that you want your whole team to commit to this fight, right? And therefore you commit to this fight because you think that's what everybody should be doing, but you have to kind of read your team as well and recognize like they're backing off. We need this Garen, right?
Yeah, it's a so if you go back and just like pause forward, or like when he's
Tell me one.
Yeah, I'll tell you one. Yep. Right as he's throwing the trap on the Renata. So he's going to walk forward and place this trap. So what this is tunnel vision. You place this trap, and in your mind, what you think is, okay, I've effectively cut the enemy team off from the Garen. Now the only thing I care about is the Garen. Conceptually wrong and very dangerous habit to have. Because what happens here is, if you play, he plays the trap, now he just goes Garen, he thinks he's safe to go Garen, and Twitch pops up, and he is woefully out of position. Your trap didn't serve to cut anyone off there, and you didn't have vision of the river, so you had no idea who was following up there. But because you thought you cut them off, and because you were like, okay, now we can just kill the Garen, you put yourself in essentially melee range with everybody. And it's not where you want to be. In this fight, I would have played towards the top of that bush. So towards, like, right under Raptor Pit, right about where you are now, but a little further back. Placed my trap in front of me in the entrance to river rather than on Renata, and then autoed the Garen. And then once Twitch pops up, I would have ran behind my Echo and just ran away until it was okay to re-engage. That feels bad because as an ADC, you're like, oh, I need to be doing DPS. I want to be autoing. I want to be doing damage. But you also have to recognize When can Twitch do damage? Only when he has Hail of Blades up, only when he has R up. Okay, so if he Rs me out of stealth, I'm leaving and I'm coming back when he doesn't have it. Or I'll auto when they get close enough that I need to try and trade damage on them, you know? Here, even to the death, you are still tunnel visioned on the Garen, to the point that you kill yourself just to be in melee range with Garen. So think about the fact that, like, on this freeze frame, there's a Renata ulting in front of you, there's a Twitch ulting in front of you, and there's a Garen. You could have just flashed over this Raptor wall towards Amumu and just placed a trap beneath you, ran away, and ulted, and you would have been fine. But because you're so tunneled on this Garen, you're not thinking about, like we said, all the tools you have at your disposal where you need to be to facilitate yourself, and instead you just walk in and die. So this was a huge moment. This fight could have swung the game for your team. Dragon's coming up in about 45 seconds or less. There's huge XP and gold to get from these kills. Jax is coming behind you. Second Herald is up. You guys haven't taken the mid tower yet. If you play this well and win this fight, this game breaks wide open for your team. So this, if you're asking what you could have done better, this was a huge moment.
I've had this muted for like a long time, and I want to apologize to everybody.
Control word. Try and keep that in mind. You want a control word. Especially because Dragon despawned. Objectives are really important to have vision around. Part of your job as any champion in the game, whether you're an ADC, support, mid, jungle, doesn't matter. You should be buying a control ward or at least have some form of vision control up for an objective. Here, you're running top lane when Dragon's up for seemingly no reason to catch a wave that Jax is already running to.
Even if the Rift Herald is there, like, Jax has it.
Yeah, like, you don't need to be here at all. This is really, really bad. Your team's fighting 3v5 now for the Dragon. This was a huge swing. You needed to be there for that fight.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was good, actually. He ulted back to dodge the Caitlyn R and then used the blast gun to get away.
Yep.
Here, you're playing really far up in mid lane after your whole team just died. You have no prio to be here. You have no reasonable reason to be here. You're just asking to die. Good use of traps, but still shouldn't be here.
Yeah, you're not going to slow this Garen down that much.
I knew you would find your mark eventually.
So, for instance, like to give you an example of like how something. Do you want to pause real quick? How something that small can be so bad, and why it seems like I'm stressing it so much. If I was on the enemy team, and you'll see this actually if you watch our competitive games when they're streamed for Blue, if someone does that, either they die for it, or I use the fact that you can't walk in and you can't walk back in and have to take a super long route to just take your 2 unit here. Like reasonably, as the shot caller for Blue, I'm probably just calling for us to take tier 2 here. If we force you off, Garen's just going to zone you. We're going to full crash that wave, and now we just get to take tower for free because no one's there to clear it. So that's why something that small is like, oh, but all I did was overextend mid lane and I didn't even die for it. Yeah, well, it's bigger than that, you know? Obviously in these games, you don't super have to worry about it because, you know, people on that team aren't, you know, challenger players or anything. But it is worth thinking about, like, if I don't do that, could I have been there to do something more for my team? Did I open myself up to a loss by allowing them to get in there? And just thinking, you know, why am I where I am? If I freeze froze, if I freeze framed in mid lane, when you were catching that wave, and I asked you, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? There's no answer, right? Because we're just doing things based off feeling. We're just moving somewhere on the map. At best, the answer is going to be something, I'm catching the wave. Well, you could have caught the wave back at your tier 2. Or you could have caught it, you know, after placing traps and wards around yourself to make sure you were safe. The wave's not going anywhere, right? They're going to come push the wave to you, actually. So if you think about, okay, why am I where I am? What am I facilitating? Why am I here? Even if the answer is simple, there's always something more to think about. And it's really important, especially in your solo queue games, to be mindful of that. And that's why so many high elo players and coaches especially will recommend play 3 to 4 focused games of solo queue rather than 10 to 12 games of solo queue. Because you're going to learn so much more and be so much better in those games if when you're playing them, you are every second of the game actively thinking about what am I doing and why am I doing it, rather than having games like this where in lane you were pretty mindful about what you were doing, but then in that mid lane you didn't even think, and then things happen and things move, and then it gets harder. So I would really recommend just try and be like, when you're playing League, nothing else. What am I doing in the game right now?
I think it's relevant too. Like, the fact that you are at this point in the game and able to make these decisions, though, is very important, right? And shouldn't be kind of looked past, because that last game that we reviewed, you didn't have the ability to even ask these questions. You know what I mean? You were just way too weak because you came out of lane phase extremely weak. So like, having a consistent lane phase is going to be important and helpful for you to be able to get to this point and say, we keep losing the mid game. How do I fix this?
Yeah,
we'll get there, right?
Yeah. More like other negatives or other things to like constructively give feedback on doesn't mean that other things, like the improvement of other things, hasn't happened or doesn't matter. The other things we've complimented are still huge improvements. This doesn't deter them at all. It's just other things to talk about.
All right. You caught the twitch.
Yep. Here, I would mention you're starting to get a little distracted. You're not focused on maintaining your CS, catching waves you need to catch, or being where you need to be. So your CS is starting to fall behind. It's still okay here. You're still close to 7 if you catch this whole mid wave, but you're getting distracted. So you're not catching this mid wave. Oh, my alarm's going off. I'm so sorry.
All good.
So here you actually fall behind 7 just because you're starting to lose the plot a little bit. So there's a whole wave in mid that you should be pushing here. I know I just said, oh, group of the team, but then I'd say, go push mid instead of grouping with the team. It's just a different situation. Jax is a split pushing character. He wants to be alone. You can shove that wave fast and then move to your team, especially with ult in your arsenal. But instead, what happens here is you guys walk down, get caught in the jungle, lose a fight, pull Jax away from his tower, which he doesn't want to be pulled away from, and now you can't even catch the mid tower, and now you're definitely falling behind 7 CS a minute. But Jax plays pretty well, so it's okay. This is a recall timing. You don't do anything this game. You have 50 mana. You barely have enough for a Q and a W at this point. Not both.
And that's assuming that this Garen will actually fight you, because he can just run away.
But he also could absolutely kill you.
Yeah.
If that Garen wanted to, he could have just ran at you with Q there, and you're not going anywhere. Control word blue trinket. This is about 4 recalls now, 3 or 4 recalls where you've forgotten your blue trinket. One of the most important trinkets to the game. You only usually have 1, maybe 2 on a team. Really important to get it. Executioners is terrible here. You need Infinity Edge. Infinity Edge is the single greatest boost to your damage in the game of any item on Spike. It is very vital to get that item once it is useful, which is second item now. There are very rare situations where LDR is technically more damage because of the amount of health and armor on the enemy team, but usually it's Infinity Edge. Like 99% of the time, second item is Infinity Edge. But pay attention to patch notes, because if they change that, so I no longer gives you increased crit damage on 40%, then the item builds will change. Here you should be placing your traps. Yep. Deter them from pushing. You're placing them too close to the wall. People don't tend to stick directly to the wall like that. They like to walk more through the open passages. Like, they like to be in little nooks, but they don't like to be touching the wall, you know what I mean? It's fine. This ult is bad. You're way too close to the enemy. Your champion does more damage just autoing and using abilities naturally if you're in range for them, and there you are in range, so you should just be using them. So here, Dragon's coming up again. Dragon's really important. I hope this is taken note of. In your solo queue games, try and ping this. If you notice Dragon's coming in 45 seconds, just spam ping that Dragon's coming up like 3-4 times, and be ready to play for the Dragon. So here you're going to overstay because you want pickaxe. Just buy a cloak and a control ward, because you will die to Twitch here if he wants you dead. You have no team on the map. Everyone else recalled. You have no vision above you. Luckily, Twitch is bot lane. But this is just an insta-death for you here. And at best, you get some AD rather than crit chance, and it's just not very good.
Yeah. Kind of similarly to earlier when you didn't die and you were running through the jungle and you made it out alive, even though you should have just backed off and caught the wave at your second. You didn't get punished for this, but the goal of kind of what we're doing here is to get you to rank up, and at higher ranks you will get punished for this. So that's kind of why we bring it up.
It's also important to think of how much you stand to lose because you want a little more AD. If you die here, it's a 4v5, Dragon's up, Baron's up. So if you die here to Twitch, and then they get to group up and just kill your team and go to Baron, or group up and just do Baron and your team can't contest, it's huge loss. You need to be buying a blue trinket. And also, pause. You think this is your team making a bad choice, probably. A lot of people would. Why is my team fighting? I'm not even there. Why are they doing this? You weren't there because you greeted for a wave. You had the option to recall at the exact same time as Ashe and the rest of your team and come out of the base at the exact same time and be here for this. Because you stayed for a pickaxe, this is a 4v5. Or a 3v5, actually, because Echo went top. But because you stayed for a pickaxe, this fight is really bad, as opposed to just kind of bad. So that's a huge thing if you think about what you could have done better. The fact that you weren't here with your team because you wanted a pickaxe is huge. Here, this objective is gone. You are too late. You know? This is recognizing when the play is over is really, really important. Because if you had walked up and tried to greed for that, it goes really poorly, right? So it's important.
I'm just going to scrub the rest of this just to see like how much time we have in between team fights.
Yeah. I assume we'll go to fight a Baron here. At this point, your teammates are probably pretty tilted. Here, you should be just flashing away from Garen, most likely. If he wanted to kill you there, he could have. Here, you're not watching what your team is doing. It's really important to unlock your camera and pay attention to what your team is doing. Should buy a cloak instead of longsword there. And here, I imagine they just start pushing you in mid. They probably want this inhib. So you guys probably look for another fight. Maybe Jax goes behind for a fight. But it's pretty unplayable at this stage. So there, when you're like too far out of range to really follow up with your team, just use R. At least you can do something.
The universe will, but I make it thunderous.
So, if we pause here, one thing I will mention: about 9 minutes have passed since you started falling behind on minions, and in that time you've gained 30. So we went from 7 CS a minute to 3, a little over 3, like 3.5, probably 4 by the time the game ends. So it's something to think about. Why did we go from 7 CS a minute to 3 to 4? How do we prevent that from happening? What waves am I failing to catch? What CS am I missing in the late game? Am I going to fights I shouldn't be going to? Am I recalling too late? Am I dying on really large waves? Start looking for mistakes like that, because if you have double your CS here and you don't have to recall as much, there's an option. I mean, you could have a third item. You could be in position to have more kills to get yourself another item. Huge swings. But yeah, important to note that you did choose to go LDR here third, which means you still don't have IE and are not going to have it. I don't assume it would have made a huge difference this game. Maybe second item IE would have made a huge difference this game. But really, really bad to not have IE here. Looking for ult is good here because it's all you have. Like I said before, try to be focusing the same target your team's focusing. Wouldn't have done anything there, but you had 2 champions on your team that were hitting Lilia, and you tried to shoot the Renata. It's just not helpful. Clearing out this wave is good, because you want to try and deter their push. But you should just be waiting mid to catch that next wave, because you're not going to do much to help this kill on Renata. Even if you guys kill her, you're not going to be the reason why, right? You actually get more gold and more XP worth of gold by just catching mid-wave, and Lilia doesn't get to just come shove it for free. But yeah, look how little damage you're doing. And she barely has armor. She has like Warden's Mouth. Obviously, Ocean Soul makes it a little harder to do damage, but yeah, I assume they'd probably just flip a fight on you mid.
Yeah, we got another 2.5 minutes of
yeah,
you getting
if I
pushed
was
here.
yeah, if I was the enemy team, the second I got that Baron, I just group everyone mid. We run it down your inhib and you die.
Yep.
There's like your team's super weak here. You guys are really behind. So
yeah,
I think there are a lot of good things to work on there.
Yeah, I mean,
Itemization open up a little more.
like I said, I'm gonna pull up the notes again real quick. I'm gonna just write myself here in a notepad, and I'll put them into new notes soon. These are good. One note, one thing that I did miss is on stream, Showy Colt asked, in a game that I'm not against an Invis champ, roughly how many control wards should I buy a game? That's in your notes. Buy a control ward when you have the gold to do so and do not have a control ward already. That also presupposes that you're using your control wards.
And
it's less about
important.
number, right? It's more
Right.
about having them and using them for how you need to use them.
Yeah, it's less about number. As you get more advanced, there is like times when you know you need to have them and times when you don't. Times when you know your control ward's going to stick around, times when you know they're going to clear it, so you need another one. For me personally, typically I end a 30-minute game with like 4 to 5 control wards. That's for you, that feels like, oh my god, that's so few after this game, because you're like, well, I backed like 8 times, you know. At higher levels, the recalls are more coordinated. They're more, like I know when I'm going to recall in my lane. I know when I need to. I know when I'm trying to facilitate it. I control the waves to facilitate it. So I'm controlling my recalls typically in my lanes. I know when I'm going to back, why I'm going to back. So I'm recalling less, as opposed to like, silver, gold, bronze games where you might just get chunked out and have to leave, or the enemy jungle might just come bot randomly and you have to leave, or so. But I would say typically I end my games with 4 to 5, but as a baseline, it's pretty much just like buy a control ward because you want to have control wards. But like I mentioned in this game specifically, if an objective's coming up, Dragon or Baron especially, just buy one. Especially if you don't have one, buy one. Because they're really, really important around objectives, because vision control means everything for objectives.
Okay. So for general, this stuff, I think of these notes, right? I still kind of want to keep this note in for using what you can, using your E. You're doing a better job of that, don't get me wrong. But I'm going to kind of give the specific grenade usage as well. So we want to utilize the grenade as well as you can. Remember that it bounces to the nearest target. Just try to punish people with that a little bit more than you kind of have been. And then from a macro perspective, is this back timings? Because we found that it's kind of multiple times in a row that we've overextended because we are either trying to get an extra wave or...
Yeah, I would probably call it more just like let me think for a second, sorry.
Sure, no. It's all fine.
Yeah, I guess it would be called back timings. I think the more pressing matter is just like overstaying.
Yep.
Like don't overstay. Don't overstay. Think of back timings and try and stop yourself and think in these moments. When you're standing, just freeze frame your brain and be like, if they wanted me dead here, am I dead? And if you say no, and then they come kill you, go back into your VOD and watch that. Be like, why did I think I was safe here? How was I wrong? Why was I wrong? And then take that information with you into your next games. A lot of the times, the way people think about getting better at League or taking criticism in League is a yes and mentality. In math class, what is really important to teach people is how to get to where they're going, right? I can tell any kid 2 + 2 is 4, and as long as they trust me, they will go on the rest of their life saying, I know 2 + 2 is 4. But you have to show them 2 + 2 is 4 because 1 + 1 is 2. And 1 + 1 is 2 on the other side, you have to show them why it gets there. And that's what's really important, because that's how you're going to learn about the rest of the numbers, right? Otherwise, all you learned is 2 + 2 is 4. You don't even know what 2 is. You don't even know what 4 is. You just know that when I say these words that sound like this, that's the answer. And that happens in League too. So it's really important to think about, because a lot of people look at it and be like, okay, I was dead there. I was wrong about being safe there. And they'll just go on to next game. But they don't think about, why was I dead there? Why did I make that mistake? Why was my thought process faulty? And really learn. Because really learning is what's going to enable you to, in your next situation, ask yourself if you're dead there and get it right. Because otherwise you're just guessing.
Yep. Okay. Much better than last week. being honest,
Much
huge
better.
improvement, right? Now we'll start to get to how do we get you into mid game, into late game stronger? How do we get you? I think one of the things that will eventually hit a turning point is how do we get you now punishing your lane opponents and punishing the other team for their mistakes? Now that we have you in a better place as far as your own strength and your ability to kind of put out some damage and be prepared.
I will say, obviously the late game started ending up a little unfocused, but for the most part, I think keeping chat off kept you a lot more engaged with the game.
Yeah.
So keep chat off because you looked a lot better.
Yeah. All right, cool. I will get this VOD up and I'll ping you when it's up. I think you've been here the whole time, though, Sherry. So thank you for joining us. I hope us answering the questions that did come up was helpful. One of the reasons why we don't necessarily have somebody join a voice call is what we don't want is somebody to just try to explain away all of the issues that are in the game, right? We don't necessarily want somebody to just be like, oh, you know what, I just wasn't thinking there. But it's like that may be true, but that's not really helpful for anybody. So we want to make sure that you're focused, that we can give you kind of exactly an objective look at what's going on here, and not have people defend their actions the whole way through. Yeah, cool. Alrighty, everybody have a good one. We will be back tomorrow with Valorant. I hope if we have some mods for it, we'll see. Me and PT might be playing 1v1s and just talking. We'll see. All right, thank you very much for joining me, Suki.
Yeah, of course. Sorry I missed earlier.
Yeah, no problem. We will we'll go again next week.
Yep.
Have a good one.